listening to Hair Raising Horror Week from the Paranormal Patio Podcast.
Welcome to the Paranormal Patio. As always, I am Jason, and I wanted to take a little time before this episode, not only to introduce tonight's guest, but also to thank everybody for tuning in to Hair Raising Horror Week. I think this is going to be something we'll be able to do for the existence of the show. Every year around Halloween, we'll do some sort of event like this. It's been a lot of fun. I've talked to some amazing people, and I hope that that comes across as you listen to the episodes. We're not done. The week continues. And tonight's guest, Adam Taula. Adam is a paranormal investigator for 20 years. He's got some great stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Stanley Hotel. We're going to talk about the Queen Mary. And we're going to talk about the Skinwalker Ranch. Stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the rest of the week. Thank you for everything that you've done so far. And I can't wait until we get to the end of the week. Big stuff. Anyway, here we go. Adam Taula.
Hi everyone, this is Megan.
Hey, it's Michael.
What's up, guys? I'm Dan, and you're listening to Paranormal Patio.
The Paranormal Patio.
Paranormal Patio.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Hair Raising Horror Week.
Adam, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing really good. I'm in the Midwest, and I'm in my patio, and it's nighttime, so it's a little chilly, but other than that, I'm great.
Yeah, you can tell it's fall here in Utah as well, so I'm very looking forward to it.
Beautiful out there.
It is, yeah. We've got the good colors coming, and you can definitely tell fall's here, so I'm excited.
Yeah, all of our corn is turning brown, so I know it's here too.
Oh, yep, same here. love a good corn maze. That's how you know it's time.
Right. Well, Adam, you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So my name's Adam. I grew up in Orange County, California, but I moved to Utah. I just have noticed that the state is a hotbed of paranormal activity. You know, I don't know if you believe in haunted people as well as haunted places, but my husband says I'm a haunted person. So no matter where we go, I just have stuff happen to me. It's nuts. So, and I used to think that wasn't a thing, but over the past decade or so, yeah, there's just really no other reason to explain some of the things that have happened to me over the years. So, I think that's definitely a possibility.
Well, I hope that you make it through everything okay.
Things are good now. In fact, just this morning, I woke up at 4 a.m. to my paintings. I'm an artist. And I had some of my paintings fly off the walls in my guest bathroom out into the hallway again. That kind of stuff happens. And it's really weird because it happens every year on the 2nd of October. Like, I have it documented. I have no idea why.
That's really bizarre.
At this point, my husband expects it to happen. So we just kind of get on and move on with the day.
That's what you've got to do, right?
Yeah. Super weird.
Well, let's get into it, man. I'm really anxious to hear your stories, and I'm sure the listeners are as well.
Sure. So I've been a paranormal investigator for about 20 years. I've worked with, if you've watched them on TV, I'm sure I've worked with them. So I've been to all sorts of locations. I did it originally because I didn't believe. I wanted to debunk everything. So when I was a child, I had a lot of things happen that my parents even were concerned. So as I got older and became a teenager, I wanted to just kind of experience what else was out there and if it was just me. So it turns out over the years, I have no doubt in my mind that there's paranormal activity going on all around us. It's just a matter of taking a minute and noticing it and listening. I will say, going on investigations, I've kind of lost count of how many I've been on, but people kind of just ask me to come along, different groups, just because they want something to happen. And that sounds nuts, but it's just kind of what happens. When I'm around, the K2 meter will go crazy, or the ghost box, or we'll get EVPs that are insane. And I don't know why that is.
You're just a beacon in the darkness, my friend.
You know what? I'll take that, but I don't, it's not the best thing in the world sometimes, but I've learned to deal with it. It used to really freak me out when I was younger, but now, like I said, with the paintings that flew across my room this morning, it's just stuff that happens, and I'm okay with it. If something's going down like this in a house or a place I'm investigating, I just start talking to them out loud and making jokes, because I'm actually very easygoing, and when it comes to investigating, I like to take that approach. These were people at one point usually, and so I just sort of talk to the air like I'm talking to a friend or a person, and try and keep it respectful. I don't ever go out and start demanding things to happen, because it's just not the way I work when I investigate, and I found that is the best way to go about it for me.
It's probably the best way to go about it for anyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the end of the day, a lot of these spirits, or whatever you call them, they were people at one point, and they have feelings. So you don't go into someone's house and demand that they put on a show for you.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess you could.
You could if you're there's some shows on TV right now where that's their thing, and they seem to be getting possessed on every episode. So I'm not about that life, so I don't want to do that.
It's good for ratings, too.
It is. It's super good for ratings.
Everything on TV right now is a demon, so.
It is. It's a little bit much, but, there's no need to embellish things like that, because it is very real. If you just take time to be still and go to certain places, there's some places, the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado. Have you ever been there or heard of it?
I haven't been there, but I'm pretty familiar with it. Yeah, actually, one of my friends just visited there yesterday.
Oh, I love that place. If your listeners don't know, that is the hotel that Stephen King wrote The Shining.
Absolutely.
And that's my favorite movie, by the way, and my favorite book. And I've gone there probably about 6 or 7 times. And every single time I've gone, I've had something happen.
Have you done any of the ghost tours while you were there?
I did, yeah. I did.
Did you ever have Connor Randall or Carl Pfeiffer?
Carl sounds familiar. I think I might have.
Connor and Carl actually did a little documentary series called The Spirits of the Stanley, and it was pretty good stuff. Oh, very neat. I'll have to check that out. They actually kind of developed a new way of doing ghost box sessions while blindfolded with noise-canceling headphones. That is right. One person would ask a question, and then, they'd get the response, and then whoever was blindfolded and listening would just say whatever they heard. Now that I think of it, I might have been there when they first brought that out, because I was there for a conference with Jason Hawes and Grant Wilson from the Ghost Hunters. Okay, yeah. Worked with them in the past, and I remember Carl was on Ghost Hunters. He was like the one where they had all the students and stuff, like people that were. Oh, that's right. Recruited. Yeah, and then there's Adam as well, and Yeah, so that's right. Yes, I've met all those guys, so that is true. I have seen this happen. I've been there when they've done this. So it's very cool, and that is a very interesting way to go about it. Mm-hmm. And the Stanley is just one of those places. They say, there's so many different theories, but the hotel's built right onto the bedrock of the mountain, and they say that could have a lot to do with why there's so many hauntings, sort of playing back like a record, always. Yeah, sure. One time we were there for a costume party, for a Halloween costume party, and my friend Sarah and I, she actually won the contest. And so the prize for the night was we got to stay in room 217. Wow. Those of you who might not know, room 217 is the room that Stephen King stayed in when he was writing the story, The Shining. So famous room. I was like a kid on Christmas freaking out. And we set up cameras and we tried to sleep. But I have footage of the bathroom door opening and closing.
You can hear the shower curtain moving around. We stayed in another room, and when we do these paranormal conferences, they sometimes will just shut the power off in the building and let us have free reign of the complex. So one of these nights, we just had flashlights the entire evening, and all the power was out in the hotel. And I had to go upstairs to use the bathroom in my room. And it's kind of unnerving to take that old elevator up to we were on the 3rd floor, and walk to the room in the dark. And I remember going into the bathroom, and right as I shut the door, I could hear kids bouncing on the bed, jumping up and down and laughing. And I remember standing there, and I'm like, can you just wait and do this as I'm leaving the bathroom? So stuff like that always happens. They say there's a lot of spirits of children at this hotel.
Yeah, the top floor, right, is like supposed to be fourth floor. Because it was designed, whenever they built it, it was designed, that was where the children stayed, right?
It is, yeah. So I actually went on my honeymoon to the Stanley, and we stayed in room 418, I believe. It's the children's room where the children's spirits are said to be extremely active. And I have some pictures up on my Facebook that I posted because it was the anniversary the other day. And we would leave the room and come back, and there would be toys that would just appear in the room, like little toys. And so I thought that was interesting. So I did an experiment where I kind of lined some different toys up in the closet, and the closet locks from the outside. And we, spent the night, woke up the next morning, and the toys were all moved in the closet. So, very, very cool place. I recommend anyone check it out.
It's on my bucket list.
Oh, it's beautiful. Do we have any, Queen Mary fans out there?
Probably.
The Queen Mary's an ocean liner. It's permanently docked in Long Beach, California. That used to be my weekend hangout spot at the bar over there. It's a really, really, really cool place. It's an ocean liner built in the 30s, and I have to say it is the most haunted place I've ever been out of anywhere. Like the Stanley, the Queen Mary never disappoints. I've lost count how many times I've gone there, but I've always had something happen, no matter how small. But the ship, it's kind of creepy. I mean, it's definitely one of those places you walk in and you say, oh yeah, this is haunted for sure. In particular, the pool area, there's a spirit of a girl named Jackie, and, a lot of places say things like this, so I wanted to go one night and see for myself. Back in those days, you could just kind of break it. Well, not break in. I would never recommend doing that. But right, you could just walk in. You could walk freely through the ship back in the early 2000s, and no one really sort of cared. Nowadays, it's locked like Fort Knox. You can't get into anything. But at this time, we did get into the pool area, and the pool was drained back in the 90s. I think Disney bought the ship, and they were going to turn that into what is now Tokyo Disney Sea.
Okay.
So they were retrofitting the ship to turn into an amusement park and use the Queen Mary as the focal point. So they had to rip out all of the support beams that held the pool. And so now they can't fill the pool up. So it just sits empty in the first class pool area. But many ghost hunters, including the ghost hunters, when they were filming, say that the pool and the changing room area specifically is a portal to another dimension. It's a pretty crazy place, being there in the pitch black, walking down a hall of changing rooms that are just on both sides of you.
Yeah.
There's something about empty doorways that kind of freaks me out when I'm
especially
investigating.
in the dark, man.
Yeah. So you can feel the air sort of swirling. It's hard to explain, but you can tell there's something going on that is beyond us in that area. And we did get not only EVPs, but we could hear with our own ears a girl was talking to us and responding and actually crying.
Wow.
The Queen Mary's also the place where I did see my first full-body apparition.
Okay.
On the Queen Mary, they had the third-class ballroom, which is called the Martania Room. And I didn't know anything about that room at one of the first times I investigated. This was years ago. And I remember walking into the room with a few of my team members, and we just kind of sat in the middle of the room. And you can see portholes around the room in the dark, with the bay there shining through. And I remember we got quiet, and the air just completely changed around us. And I looked over at my team members, and they were crying, like tears were coming down their face. It was really bizarre, because this was happening instantly. And then I noticed I started tearing up and crying. And one thing I've noticed over the years is if my eyes start watering like that for no reason, something usually will happen right away. So we're sitting in the room, and the girl next to me is sobbing, and the air just got super thick. And I started to notice that I could see people walking around, and I thought it was on the outside of the portholes on the front of the ship. But these people were walking around on the inside of the room.
Oh.
And they were gathering around us. I'd have to say that's probably one of my top 5, being scared out of my life sort of deal.
I would imagine so, yeah.
It was nuts. The only thing I can liken this to is in the corner of the room, I started to see what looked like television static, kind of forming a ball. And then the ball sort of turned into the shape of a head, then shoulders, and it started to materialize in front of all of us in the corner. And it was a man, and you could only see the top half, his arms and shoulders and head, but it was just television static, so there was no features. And right next to him, a pair of legs appeared. And I remember they were wearing nurses' shoes. And it was in black and white, like an old film, it's so cliche because that's how they show it in movies.
Right.
But that's literally what it looked like in real life. While this is going on, we're all just sitting there sort of having a meltdown. And this is set up for weddings, and so there's piles of chairs in the corners, and we can hear the chairs moving around and then things starting to fall in one of the closets. So now we're sort of backing up to each other in a circle because we're sort of losing our shit. I remember we all sort of kind of went back to back and just slowly, there's something about when something like this is happening and it's getting real like this, I don't run. I feel it makes everything just so much worse.
Sure.
That and I'm a professional, like I don't want to be running out like a kid. So we slowly kind of backed out of the room and got out into the hallway, and immediately it was like we had just gotten out of a pool and all the pressure was gone, and we just sort of didn't have any words. It's funny, as we opened the door and popped out, Grant Wilson was standing outside, and he's like, "Whoa, what did you guys see?" And I said, I don't even know. I don't know what to say. Long story short, that kind of haunted me for a while. I remember we spent the rest of the week investigating the boiler room. The entire ship has stories. I really highly recommend people check it out. But this particular visit, something followed me back from that ship that night. Going home back to Salt Lake City, I sort of just couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake the things that I had seen. And my friend Jim, who I worked with, he's in charge of all the EVP work, and so he had told me that he had gotten a bunch of things in the room while this was happening. And I remember going to bed one night, the first night after I got back to Salt Lake, and I woke up in the middle of the night. All I can explain this as is I saw the portholes of that room that I just mentioned all around the bed. And I was in the room, and I could see those shadows of the people that we saw in real life standing around the bed and coming around. And I heard a voice distinctly say to me, "God can't help you now." He said exactly.
Well.
I know, right? Isn't that just something to hear in the middle of the night? So I'm like, it's like a sleep paralysis kind of thing going on at this point. I can't move. And I sort of hit over at my boyfriend at the time to wake him up. And I just jumped out of the bed to where the light switch of my room should have been, and I flipped it on. And even with the lights on, I was still in the damn room, and I watched the walls kind of just melt away. It's like a horror movie. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. And by then, I feel like I've just, lost my mind and everything, because I've never had that happen. I walk into the living room, pull up my computer, because I can't go back to sleep now. I just have a half dozen dead people in my room or something.
You'll never sleep again.
I know. And so I go to my computer and click the email from Jim, and the first EVP that I pull up, it's a voice, and it's the exact same voice I heard in my bed, and it says, "God is lost." That's the EVP. And it's clear as day. And I know people say that they're always clear and sometimes they're not, but this was exactly what it said. So that sort of, other things kind of escalated at that point, and honestly, I ended up moving from the apartment, and we had it blessed, because things continued happening for months. And the thing that I did to get it to stop is I actually went back to the Queen Mary to kind of face that room again and kind of just say, you need to stay here. It might seem silly, but when I do an investigation and I end it, I always tell whoever's around me, you need to stay where you are. You're not welcome to follow me back. Mm-hmm. Because of this specific incident. And I've never had anything like that happen since. But it's one of those stories that even when I'm saying it to you now, I don't believe it. But, it was straight up horror movie.
Yeah.
And that was like the fast version. But the Queen Mary, absolutely, it's haunted. There's just some places that you can't escape that sort of thing.
Yeah. I feel really bad for you just listening to the fast version.
You know what? Like, it was terrifying at the time, but now it's awesome. I can't believe I have that story that I can tell people, because it's so cool.
Yeah, it's an incredible story.
But it definitely happened, so.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Hey, it's Michael. You guys are listening to the Paranormal Patio on their hair-raising horror week. Stay tuned for some more scary stuff.
In a sleepy little town in southwest Minnesota lies a house where the inhabitants are not of this world, the Boyd House. Some disturbing behaviors include audible voices and EVPs, equipment interaction, and moving objects. Now, for the first time ever, a documentary has been made. Join us as we watch the town and house in the days gone by. Exclusive interviews with investigators as they share their experiences and evidence from their nights at the Boyd House. Check out our Facebook page, Boyd House, or on YouTube on our St. Croix Paranormal page to view this spooky adventure. Spine-tingling, terrifying, hair-raising horror of a podcast. It's Hair-Raising Horror Week, right here from Paranormal Patio.
So as I said, there are just some places that are haunted, and they seem to be more active than others. And I will say that Utah, the state of Utah, has never disappointed in that department. You could go anywhere in the state and someone has a story of a building or a place or a piece of land. Out of all of my investigations, consistently here in Utah, anytime I investigate a place, there's activity. And that doesn't happen anywhere. It's like, I tell people it's like going fishing. You're not going to have something every time you go out and investigate. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
If it happens every time, then, either you're faking it or something else is going on.
Sure.
But in Utah consistently, there's just activity. Before I moved back to Orange County, I rented a house in Salt Lake City. And this house was probably built in the 20s. And the owner was remodeling. And so I was able to get my rent discounted greatly.
Score.
And I was able to, and I do interior design, so I was able to help with the house as well. And part of that was painting and doing things like that. This house, it was owned by one of my friends, and she knows how I am, and she knows that I love to investigate places, so she purposely would not tell me anything about this house. And she, but I know, we don't talk anymore, so if that tells you anything. So she wouldn't tell me what was going on, but I knew something was up with this house. I'd be startled out of bed every morning at 3. So this house in Salt Lake City, I'm remodeling and helping with that. And I'm noticing as we're repainting things, activity starting to escalate. One particular night, my mother came to visit. I lived in a part of the house that was an addition that was kind of over the backyard and where there used to be a vineyard. I guess the man who lived in this house grew grapes and did his own wine. The way it worked is you would go through a doorway into a hall that connected you to the addition of the house. So it wasn't really connected to the house in any way. It wasn't connected to the main house. And so when you would walk down the hall, there'd be a bathroom to your left. Then you'd walk into a little bedroom and then go through that little bedroom into the bedroom I slept in.
Okay.
So my mom stayed in that front bedroom, and I was in the back. And I had a cat. Her name was Percy, and she was freaking awesome. And she would get out and stuff, so I would close that front door into that hall that connected you to the area I lived in. And so there would be no way for this cat to get out or to go anywhere. But we wake up at 3 in. My mom wakes me up and she says, "Did you light candles in the bathroom? Because there's candles everywhere that are lit." And I said, "No, I'm asleep." So I run into the bathroom and there's candles that are lit around. And I don't even remember there being that many candles in the bathroom. I do love a good candle, but I can tell you right now I didn't light those candles. So when something's lighting things on fire in your house,
yeah,
start to get a little worried.
Sure.
We kind of blow out the candles. My cat is like on my bed. Everything's good. She goes back to sleep. Not even an hour later, I hear this huge crash. I run into where my mom is, and she looks terrified, and I turn the corner to that hall where the bathroom is, and the shower curtain and the rod are out in the hall across, hit against the wall. And it had been ripped and bent, the entire shower curtain rod, and it had been thrown across this hall. Wow. So it's not like it just fell. It was thrown.
Right.
So at that point, I can't find my cat anywhere, but I can hear her crying. And she's in the walls. So I unlock the door to the main house, and I run down into this basement, which the basement's a whole other story. And I find my cat, and she's in the rafters, or she's in the ceiling of the basement below us, and she was clawing, trying to get into my bedroom. So I guess what I'm saying is there's just no possible way that this could have happened unless someone picked her up, took her out of the area of the house I lived in, and carried her down into the basement. So
or you have a teleporting cat.
Yeah, that's probably possible too. She was pretty crazy. So this is all just on one night. I remember I painted the bathroom teal. And I know that pissed off whatever spirit was in the house, because that night I painted the bathroom. It was Christmas Eve, I think. And I had 2 other roommates that lived in that basement I was speaking of, but they both left town, and so it was just me at the house, and I was finishing up some painting, and I just went into the living room to go wrap up some presents for the morning. And my cat's next to me, and she looks over to the bathroom, and I hear a woman hysterically crying in the bathroom. And I don't know how to explain this, but I hear her crying, and then I hear her voice sound like it goes through the floor into the basement, and then all of a sudden the basement doors are slamming, and I hear a woman laughing, hysterically laughing. Same woman. I kind of just backed out and put my shoes on and went to my mom's for the rest of the night on that. I don't mind ghost hunting, that's fine. But, you know, when you're alone in a house that's already seems to be possessed, and this sort of thing's happening, you don't want to stay there sometimes. So I did leave that night and I felt bad. But things like this would happen constantly in this house. We'd be in the living room with my roommates. I remember we were playing like a board game or something, Cards Against Humanity or something, and we see a man walk past the kitchen window, and it's snowing heavily, and we have an old RV on the side of this house. So we see a man walk, and so I go to look. First of all, to be able to be seen from that window in the kitchen, you'd have to be 9 or 10 feet tall, because it's not on the ground level. So it didn't even dawn on me that what we had seen wasn't possible. And then we found footprints going into this RV, but none coming out. So then we called the police, because, you know, we're in a part of the town where it's a little sketchy.
Sure.
And so the police came. No footprints coming out of the RV. They go in and there's nothing. So whatever this man was, and this was the man who lived there, I just know it, because he would also come into my room at night and I would see him standing in my bedroom.
Just standing there?
Just standing there. One time my now husband was spending the night and we had a mirror in the bedroom and he saw 3 figures in cloaks that were in the mirror but not in the room. And so it started to get sort of demonic almost. That's when I was moving back to Orange County to do some TV stuff, and so I had the house. I had a friend come and bless the house before the next family moved in, because I always do that. If something like that's going on where I'm living, I don't want the next family to have to deal with that sort of stuff. She came in, and you could tell that the house was just very heavy for her to deal with. But long story short, I found out there was a man that died in my room. He killed himself, but his wife had died first, and she died in the bathroom, the one that I was remodeling.
Mm.
So I found this out after I left, and after I had to research this myself. But I kind of already called it before. It was just kind of nice to see that it was validated.
Yeah.
But that particular house, I would say out of all the places I've lived, there was something very negative, and it was exhausting to just kind of deal with every night.
I would imagine.
So I am glad to be out of there. Haven't had that since.
Hey gang, I'm Lonnie Scott, host of Weird Web Radio, and you're listening to Hair Raising Horror Week. Stay weird out there, my friends.
But a lot of people here in Utah speculate it's the land, or if it's because there's a lot of Native American reservations here in the state, that there's something a lot more ancient going on.
Yeah.
Especially towards the Skinwalker Ranch area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of the Uinta Basin. So have you ever read the book Hunt for the Skinwalker by chance? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
It's a really cool book. You should check it out one day. But it kind of goes over the story of Terry and Gwen Sherman, who owned a ranch out here. It's kind of outside of the town of Roosevelt, Utah. They were cattle farmers, and they bought a ranch back in 94, I think. And they only lasted maybe 2 years.
Right.
Because the activity that went on there was so insane that when I read the book, I said, I've definitely got to go check this out because I don't even believe it. But in this place, in this area of the state, it kind of borders the Ute Indian reservation.
Right.
So there's a lot of Skinwalker ranches. One of those places, you know you're not allowed to go, because at one point, I know Robert Bigelow, who's a billionaire, he bought the property back in '96 to do a research center, because that is how active this place is.
Right.
One of my friends who also wrote a book on the subject, he actually bought a bed and breakfast in the town of Duchesne, which is sort of on the other side of Skinwalker Ranch and Roosevelt, because he's a die-hard investigator, and he wanted to be close to the action of what was going on, because back in the early 2000s or so, it was all that we would talk about here in Utah. Paranormal investigators, it was the place to go if you could go. Like I said, you weren't allowed in the area. You weren't allowed on the land because there was actually a sniper that was hired, and they would shoot you on sight if you were caught in the land. So we would find vantage points where we could watch over the ridge to the other side, or we also had another spot we would go that would look down onto the ranch and the farmhouse. But pretty much, Skinwalker Ranch is known for there's cryptos. People are saying there's portals to other dimensions. Skinwalkers, which, if you know what those are, they're terrifying.
That's the Native American, like, ascended shapeshifter, right?
Yes. And it's sort of like a thing. I'm Polynesian, so my family's from Samoa. And Native American culture and Polynesian, we're both native people. And so we have a lot of these same stories that I grew up with. And it's one of those things, you just don't mess with it. And if you go down there to Duchesne or to Roosevelt, there's a lot of native people, you can't mention it to them. It's just something you do not speak about. So, of course, I had to see what the deal was.
Yeah, it's pretty rare for them to ever speak out about it also. I mean, There's a few people that have, both, in books and visual media. But for the most part, it's kind of just, like you said, it's just one of those things you don't bring that up.
Yeah, you just don't talk about it. But so this Terry and Gwen Sherman that I was telling you about that lived there in the 90s,
yep,
they had cattle mutilations almost on a daily basis. They once saw a wolf come up to one of their cows, and the wolf stood up to the height of the cow almost. When they were shown a book later on by some investigators, they determined the wolf was a dire wolf, which had been extinct for I don't know how many decades, or hundreds of years. And this wolf just picked this cow up and took off with it like it was nothing. And they would see orbs of light that when the balls of light would come near them, it would cause them to have a full-blown panic attack and feel the most fear that they have ever felt in their lives. When they moved into the house, it was like poltergeist.
Yeah.
So they would walk out, their chairs would be stacked neatly on top of the table in the kitchen. The wife would go and get groceries, go into the bathroom, come back out. All the groceries had been put back in the bags that she put away in the cupboards. And they wanted to know why all of their closets in their house had they had locks on the inside, multiple deadlock bolts. So they just didn't know what they were in the middle of. At the end of the day, their cows were getting mutilated. The paranormal activity was so intense, they just had to sell and get out of there. And that's when Robert Bigelow bought the property.
Right.
I will say that when I used to go out there, I used to go out there quite often. Just, if anything, to sit out on a chair, talk to your team members in the summer under the stars and just kind of sky watch. Which, by the way, we saw so many UFOs there, I lost track. It's definitely a place to go sky watching.
Just not from too close.
It's not from too close. But I remember going out there, and we were out in the sagebrush talking. And the thing with the Skinwalker Ranch and the area surrounding, I don't know how to explain this, but it's like the land can hear what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it will manifest what you're speaking of. One time, my friend Janice, who I was working with, we had the camera on the tripod pointed towards the ranch, and we all saw what looked like lights, almost like if a Walmart parking lot was to lift up in the sky and come over you. And so we're all freaking out and saying, "Can you see this? Like, we're getting it on camera." And we were just so excited because we had gotten this on film. And everyone in the party saw this. But when we stopped the camera to rewind it to check and see what we had just witnessed, there was nothing on the camera.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we all hallucinated this same thing.
Do you think that's what it is? Do you think it was a mass hallucination, or do you think it was just in that spectrum that just could not be electronically recorded?
I don't think we hallucinated anything. I know that that's a thing, but another example, we were sitting at another vantage point looking down on the ranch, and I had just gotten back from the Queen Mary, and that story I had just told you about hearing the girl crying in the pool.
Yeah.
So I was telling my team members about the visit recently, and as I'm telling the story, we're just sitting in sagebrush in the middle of nowhere. We can hear a little girl start to cry in the bushes ahead of us. If that doesn't freak you out, I don't know what. Me, just because I'm one of those people, I don't ever do anything wrong, because if I do, I get caught. So I try and do all of these investigations as legally as possible. I remember telling them after this was happening that I was getting kind of nervous because the reservation police, they do drive up and down and check and see that you're not doing anything you shouldn't be.
Right.
And so I was saying that I was getting kind of nervous that we were going to get in trouble. And as I'm saying that, we see a police car coming and the lights are on. And I'm like, see, I shouldn't have said a damn thing because this is what's going to happen. So the police car's coming, and it's down a ways on the road, and there's a huge bush that kind of blocks the road just for a moment. The police truck goes behind the bush, and it's coming up towards us, and right as it gets behind that bush, the truck, all I can explain it as, is it just shot up into the sky.
Wow.
And it disappeared. There were no police officers. And I haven't been in years because I think the straw on the camel's back for me was I took a friend out who came from LA, and we went back to the vantage point, and we were sitting, we had a laser pointer, and we kind of use that sometimes in the sky, and we've actually gotten things to sort of blink back at us from the sky. My friend had like a really powerful laser pointer. So he was doing that, and then all of a sudden, in the sagebrush ahead of us, we saw these balls of light come up out of the bushes and start floating towards us. And they would blink back the same patterns he would blink with his laser pointer. So we're just sitting in the car, and I know about these orbs of light and all of the stories people say about how it makes horrible things happen when they come near you. So I was like, we need to leave, because I don't want, and it's horrible because I'm an investigator and I shouldn't be saying that, but with Skinwalker Ranch, it's unlike anything. I can't explain it, but I don't feel safe there, and I never feel unsafe when I'm investigating, mainly because most of us are packing, but I just, I'm more scared of live people any day.
Yeah, man. People are the real monsters.
I know. But Skinwalker Ranch, it's a different breed altogether. It's not ghosts. It's something ancient and there's something on these grounds that it's not meant for us, I don't think.
Yeah, it's one of those places that, every single type of paranormal event, what is like a 3-mile radius, right? Like, that whole area. It's probably bigger than that, but...
It is, but even the people who live in the surrounding streets and homes are spaced apart, so far apart, so even though you have a neighbor, they're way down the road.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine having to live in this, especially with how I always have things sort of follow me around anyways. I don't think I could sleep at night if I had to live out in this area.
I don't think you'd have a chance.
It's a beautiful place, and the people are wonderful, but I couldn't live there. There's no way. But when I was talking about these orbs of light, they started coming towards the car, so I said, let's go. So we were backing the car up, and then my friend who owns a bed and breakfast out in that area, he had to get something from the back of the SUV. So he parks the car as these orbs are coming towards us still in the sky, and they're like maybe 10, 15 feet from the car now. And they're just moving around like like I said, like something out of a movie that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And my friend next to me, poor thing, she was crying because she was terrified and she had no idea what was going on. And we both looked in the rearview mirror and we saw a tree that was next to the car. And we noticed that it wasn't a tree, it was a being of some kind, because it bent over and looked down into our windows of the car.
Oh, no.
So this thing was at least 10 feet tall. And all I can explain it as is like the grays that you hear of when people see aliens.
Yeah.
It was like a gray, tall being, skinny as can be, huge hands and long arms with a big head.
Yeah.
And it was peering down into the vehicle. We couldn't see its face because it was pitch black here. But that was the last time I ever went there, because at that point I said, you know what, I've seen everything I can. And those are just a few of dozens of stories. It's one of those places that I think I'm good. I don't... I've seen what I need to see. I mean, people really do... They can, people go missing out in these areas, and I've had... There's so many theories, but I've had people that I know that have gotten cancer, brain cancer, right after visiting this place, and they were completely healthy before. And all sorts of medical issues happening to them after visiting the Skinwalker Ranch area. So when that sort of thing is happening, then it's, I'm good with it. I don't need to go back and put myself in that area, in that situation. There's plenty of haunted places here in Utah I can investigate. I don't need to be abducted by an alien or, sucked into a portal. I'm good for now. But Utah's definitely, if you haven't been to Utah, check it out. It's beautiful here. There's so many beautiful landscapes, but it's got an energy about it that I can't explain.
The Skinwalker Ranch, I mean, like we both touched on it, it just encompasses every single thing. You have unexplained lights, you have auditory stuff, visual stuff, like ghost-wise, cryptid-wise, everything. And I can't think of another place that I've ever read about or experienced or seen that is that way. It's just something there. You're right.
Yeah, I think I agree with you exactly. I've never heard of such a place in my life. Yeah, the thing that's so unnerving about it is it makes you see what you want to, almost. Yeah. And there's something about that disturbs me a little bit. It's a whole different level. I mean, there's police officers and sheriffs out in these towns that have called in for radio backup because they see giraffes walking through the sagebrush in Utah, or they see lions, elephants, pterodactyls flying in the sky. I mean, this isn't even, like, I'm not even making this up. Police officers are seeing these things out in the sagebrush in this Uinta Basin. And how do you explain that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's beyond rationalizing, I think.
I know that is what the appeal is for so many ghost hunters that come and visit from all over the world to see this place. But like I said, I think I spent a good 3 years or so investigating very regularly. And so I have gotten evidence, but most of it's almost like you cannot capture evidence. And we had all the equipment that you would ever need, all the cameras. They just malfunction, and they do not record the things that you see with your eyes.
Obviously, this place is everything interconnected. Like, as a whole, in the paranormal realm, I mean, how do you stand on everything being connected? Do you think it all is, or do you think each individual thing is its own thing?
Oh, I don't think I've ever thought about that.
Like, this just happens to be one of those places where you get it all at once, but it's like veins going out, and some areas you may have a lot of Bigfoot activity and a lot of, UFO activity. Some places you may have a lot of ghost activity a lot of glowing lights and things of that nature. And then, yeah, there's Skinwalker Ranch. We have everything.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the cryptozoology field, which I've gone and done many a Bigfoot hunt, but it's not my sort of thing that I love. But a lot of people I've worked with, they will argue that, that's not even paranormal. They're just actual creatures that are living here that we are not finding for some reason. But no, I know for sure it's connected in that area. It's gotta be. I can't explain any other way that it could be possible. But I do think, a lot of this paranormal, a lot of the paranormal things that happen here, I really do think they're connected. I can believe that.
A lot of, like you said, the Bigfoot people think, you're hunting this, ancient monkey, or whatever, large ape, however you want to classify it. That it's flesh and blood, and that's it. And UFOs are, steel and bolts, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And ghosts are ghosts, and that's it. But there's so many instances of overlap that I feel like I stand on the side of it's all part of the same ancient force that manifests in different ways.
And I find that around the country where I've been, there are other places that are similar to this place, but they all revolve around the same thing, and that's that they are on Native American soil, specifically around the reservations. So I don't know why. Well, I have theories, but when we're talking about these places, it's not like, Grandma died in the attic, so she's haunting the house here. There's something else happening that has to do with the land almost. And I totally believe in portals into other places because I've seen them in Skinwalker Ranch. I've seen what looks like the moon coming up out of the sky, and it's not the moon, and I've seen things crawl out of these circles of light on the ridge above the ranch. There's something going on there that's beyond any of our comprehension.
Yeah.
It's quite spooky.
It's really unsettling.
It is.
And here I am sitting alone in a dark patio.
Oh, no. Well, you're pretty far away, so I think you're good.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I may go back with my new YouTube channel that I started. I like to talk about different haunted locations around the country. So I may go out there during the day before the sun sets, maybe, and do a little filming and some history of the place. But I really have no intention of spending the night there again because, like I said, there's something completely different there than a normal residential haunting or something. It's completely day and night.
We've been talking for nearly an hour now, and to be honest with you, you've given me the goosebumps a couple of times.
Well, I'm very sorry, but maybe I'm not sorry because it's awesome, right?
It is.
I like to get scared now and then. Isn't that why we're into this stuff?
That's why we're into this stuff, man. Absolutely.
There's so much more to this world than what we can see. It's to me, it's almost crazy to say that there's no possibility of it when people give me grief about what I do.
A lot of people just don't understand. Like they live such literal lives. When you get one of those people and you show them something that they can't explain, that's fun.
I think that's the beauty of life, is finding those things you can't explain. It just makes the world seem so much bigger than it can sometimes.
And a lot of times, skeptics make the best believers. Like even you said you start out, hey, I want to debunk all this stuff because I don't believe in it. And then it showed itself to you, and now look where you are.
Now my husband says, you can't go investigating unless I'm out of town for work or something, because every time you do, you bring something back to our house. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. But it's It's very cool, and I'm all about the history aspect too of some of the of these places. I love to learn about history, and I think it's kind of funny because I hated history in high school. It was my least favorite class. But since doing paranormal investigating, I've learned so much about the history of our country, and there's so much more to see here than you would think of, and I really love that.
Yeah, it's a really useful tool whenever you're investigating,
Yeah.
Whenever you're sitting in school and all you're thinking about is, getting to recess or getting to lunch or going home at the end of the day, like, I don't need this history nonsense.
I had a little problem with going to Denny's instead of going to class, but you know what? You've got to eat sometimes. What can I say?
Those grand slams, man.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I look forward to having some more time with you here in just a minute. But for everybody listening at home, I have been Jason, my guest, Adam Taula.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening. And if you care to, on YouTube, I started a new channel. It's called The Paranormal Polynesian. I know you heard that right. It sounds weird, but that's the name. And I go investigate different haunted places in the state of Utah. We do home travel, decorating, DIY, Halloween decorations, and food, which is my favorite thing in the world. So hope you can join me there too.
And we will put that link in all the descriptions and all the posts that we have so everybody can easily find that. You can check it out. It is good stuff.
Until next time, keep the fire going.